In the vast expanse of the chaotic imposterverse, countless entities and characters exist with their own stories, designs, and unique characteristics. And among them, there is one that certainly stands out, despite its moderate popularity. One who went from an ordinary and boring life to one full of action, mystery, and battles against the worst imposters and monstrosities. And her name is Tina. Wait, that doesn't sound quite right, does it? Mirella is the protagonist of my series, Rhythmic Revolution Parasitic Mayhem, based on the Rhythmic Revolution mod, which is based on the Versus Imposter mod, which is based on Among Us. Oh my god, there's so many branches. She is definitely one of the characters I'm most proud of, and she has earned a special place in my heart, and in all of ours. I think, right? I hope. She is mainly known for her striking resemblance to the iconic Green Grump, and target of many Sims, Mitori. Despite her obvious resemblance and undeniable inspiration, Mirella is her own completely original character with her own unique story, characteristics, and interesting facts that I've never revealed publicly. For example, did you know that Mirella wasn't always like she is today? Or that she wasn't originally born in the United States? Today, I bring you these and many others interesting facts about our mimic Mitori, and I guarantee some will shock you. Back in 2023, when Rhythmic Revolution wasn't even a thing yet, and only Versus Human Imposter V2 was a reality, I decided that I wanted to have a persona. Of course, my username was already Mimic Mitori back then, but that's a story for another day. I wanted something unique, something that could represent me, something beyond just Mitori. So that's where the process of creating our beloved Mirella began. But she wasn't always the way we're used to. Taking a look back and searching through some very prehistoric archives, I managed to find some of the oldest concepts of what would become Mirella. And here we have it. Yes, I think we can see that she's changed a bit, right? This is one of the first sketches of the idea of what would become Mirella. As you can see, her skin was white, her hair slightly different, having a lighter lime tone, and her clothes are quite different. As you can see on the side, we have a screenshot from Gacha Club. This is because one of my friends at the time tried to recreate Mitori in Gacha Club as a way of representing me, and liking what I saw, I decided to doodle a bit of the design. A while later, in my own Gacha Club app, I decided to try to recreate this design, but with some subtle changes. Here, we see this little creature, which is definitely very different from Mirella and definitely resembles Mitori a lot more. In fact, her name at the time wasn't even Mirella. Well, this little thing's name was simply Mitori. I know, shocking, isn't it? Over time, I decided I wanted to refine this look further, so I started sketching something that might be a little more familiar to you. Do you recognize this? Yes? Maybe it's because these are the first sketches in the process of creating Mirella's first ref sheet. Well, as you can see, she was still white and didn't have her beauty mark on her cheek. These details were some last minute changes I made to make her more unique, and here we have the design that most closely resembles Mirella's current one. Of course, over time the design has improved and there have been obvious changes, but the core still remains intact. However, there is still one problem. Her name wasn't Mirella yet. It was just Mimic Mitori. I needed to fix that, right? Some time passed and I tried to think of some names she could have to make her stand out a bit more, but without many ideas that I really liked. Back then, Mitori was my absolute favorite character of all, and I couldn't stop talking about her with my siblings. Until one of them brought up a thought. Mitori sounds like a nickname, don't you agree? Like, Tori is a nickname for Victoria, and me could be for Miriam, Mela, Mira, or Mirella. And then that's when BOOM! So I decided to name my newest cute character Mirella Victoria. I think we definitely have my sister to thank for such a brilliant idea, which ended up coming to life on a normal day at the beach. Thanks, ML, you nailed it. Going a little into the lore, a little fun fact is that, actually, in the English course Mirella took, her friends there affectionately nicknamed her Mitori. Yes, a fact never mentioned here. Mirella's design was conceived as that of a fearless character who wouldn't be afraid to live electrifying experiences and face danger. Since she was little, Mirella watched action movies and always wanted to be in all of them. But one thing that stands out about Mirella is definitely her scarf. After all, why is Mirella wearing a scarf almost all the time, rain or shine? I don't know if anyone has ever asked themselves this, but for me, it's a valid question. Well, the reason for this is because Mirella isn't originally from the United States. Mirella was actually born and raised in South America, more specifically in Brazil. Yes, our green girl is a certified Brazilian citizen, and she'll track you there. Anyway, she's always been used to the region's warm, tropical climate. So, when she moved to a region of the United States where Hawthorne, the city where the series is located, since she was used to a warmer climate, she felt quite cold when going out on the streets. There hangs the scarf and very warm jacket. Mirella has two siblings, a middle brother and a younger sister, Mike and Anna. They've always been very close, and they were like an inseparable trio who would always look out for each other. Aww. The little heart we see on Mirella's mask was drawn with a marker by her sister Anna. And speaking of Mirella's mask, it is a special device developed by the Crewmate Corporation to help Mirella control her chaotic parasitic powers. Small nanochips were injected into her bloodstream, and they can manifest on her face whenever she wants. And if damaged in battle, they can always regenerate over time. The mask allows Mirella to use great capacities of her luminite powers, which is the substance that makes up the alien parasites. Remember, this is all my invention, okay? It's not canon for Rhythmic Revolution. That was never established nor said by OneQuart or Bluebirds or anyone, okay? Don't take it as canon. That's just my head going nuts. Some people have took PM stuff as canon before, and I'm just making sure it doesn't happen again. Sorry. Moving on, it allows her to use higher percentages of her power without losing control, and also to use her parasite properties without losing control, like claws, tentacles, and everything else. Speaking of Mirella's parasite form, I bet some of you remember when the form was officially revealed for the first time in What If Episode 2, which I know how much you loved, as it's the most viewed video on the channel with over 7k views. Yes, don't worry, I'll definitely make a part 2. Mirella's parasite form wasn't always like that. Yes, she essentially always looked like that. However, there were some iterations that had to be made, as I thought it would make the design better. Mirella's parasite form was meant to look unstable. You see the disproportionate claws, eyes where they shouldn't be, a mouth on her abdomen, ice and lava powers, and additional eyes, alongside everything else. And this is directly related to her lore, but that's subject for another video I have planned, where I'll explain the whole story of the confusing and messy first season of Parasitic Mayhem. Well, before Rhythmic Revolution was released, this was Mirella's parasite look. It remains basically the same, but something notable is, she's not wearing clothes! That's right, she basically didn't wear clothes, just like the original Parasite Midori. However, after the release of Rhythmic Revolution V1, and with Midori's redesign, which gave her a kind of special suit, I decided that Mirella needed clothes too. After all, it would be weird to walk around showing off, right? I think Bluebirds and OneQuart also thought the same. Older subscribers may also remember that Mirella's voice initially sounded different than it does today. She had a much simpler and more imperfect vocal. For those who don't remember, here's an excerpt for the first cover made with Mirella's prototype vocals. Yes, it's not the best voice. This experimental chromatic was made from Midori's original chromatic in Legacy, with some additional samples like yeah and hey added to it, in a really dry way. However, after a while, it was announced as a special video, the new and improved iconic voice of Mirella that we have today. This new chromatic was creating still using Midori's legacy vocals, but with a filter to make her sound completely different. That would make it unique, and yet retain some of Midori's essence. I'd say it worked well. The name of the filter I used is Tina, and it's a filter I've used quite frequently for various things in the past, but I don't use it as much anymore. Well, who would have thought that Mirella actually has Tina's voice? Who even is Tina? I still don't know. Originally, the plans for Mirella's character were uncertain. I was just doing covers with her visiting different universes, but I didn't have a planned story or anything like that yet. Until I started writing a foundation for our superstar. In one of the first versions I wrote for the character, Mirella wasn't a figure who fights evil, nor is she nearly the almost hero she is today. Basically, no. Believe it or not, at first, Mirella was close friends with the imposters for the Imposter Go. Not only that, but she wasn't even part of Crewmate Corporation. It's kinda crazy. There was also a point where I considered Mirella just being a regular Midori with a different outfit. An idea that was quickly scrapped for being rather boring. After that, I planned for Mirella to be someone exploring the limits of the multiverse, battling everyone she encountered, and even saving worlds. This idea came about because Mirella lived in a monotonous life and wanted to spice it up a bit. But the idea was simplified and rethought a bit because it was a little too crazy. In one of the plans considered for Parasitic Mayhem, when the series didn't even have a name and was simply called Mimic AU, there were plans for each character from Rhythmic Revolution to receive their respective Mimic version, and then team up like the Among Us Avengers to face Imposter Go's new squad of imposters. It was a rather cheesy idea that I scrapped, not because I thought it was completely garbage, but because I thought I could be more creative with it. And oh, you have no idea what's to come. Now, did you know that Mirella has an Among Us counterpart? Yes, just as the Rhythmic Revolution characters were based on pre-existing versus imposter characters, Mirella also has a short, round astronaut version with a visor. It turns out this version was created after her human version, unlike the other characters. This character is part of a parallel universe created by my goated friend, Dragon Tamer FNF, which I don't know if I'm allowed to review much about for now, but here we have our young Among Us Mirella. She looks slightly different from the design shown in this video, and that's because the design was simplified to better match this cutie's personality. In contrast to Mirella's fearless personality, this little girl is quite reclusive, shy, and even a little scared, not really enjoying combat in general. I won't give more information about her, so just stay tuned and wait for more information soon from Dragon Tamer FNF himself. Speaking of Among Us, Mirella has a prototype design that briefly appeared in the channel's earliest videos, back in the early days. If you look at the thumbnail for this video, you'll see Johnny, a character I also created as part of another Imposterverse story, shooting at a dead Among Us Mirella. And here, she's wearing pants. Yes, she wore clothes. One of the only full drawings of her, where she's, well, alive, is only in my sketchbook, which I can't show a photo of right now, so I'll quickly doodle to demonstrate what this design would look like. And finally, about the design of the Amongified version of Mirella. Is that even a word? Anyways, did you know there's an interesting detail about this design that I've never shared with almost anyone? Well, you can see that she has a sort of square pair of horns on top of her head, which, well, clearly resemble the Among Us hair clip that Mirella wears. The character design itself was entirely based off the hair clip, but what if I told you that when I created Mirella's design, these things were never horns? Well, here's the review. These are actually just the things holding the Among Us to Mirella's hair, but fan art and even designers interpreted them as horns, and honestly I like this idea. So I decided to embrace it and canonize them as horns. So if you drew these thinking they were horns, don't worry, you weren't wrong. Since I don't know if I can reveal this sweetheart's name right here, I'll hide it for the rest of the video. So keep an eye out and connect the dots if you want to find her name. A short bonus fact, Mirella had in the past an unused concept of a Goose Goose Duck variant. A very old one. I guess you can tell why it never got used in the first place. Also, notice for the watch on her wrist. It's a reminiscent from that same old scrap multi-dimensional traveler plot. Yes! Alright, anyways, moving on. Without a shadow of doubt, the most iconic couple of parasitic mayhem, and my personal favorite, is Ryan and Mirella. Like, come on, those two are made for each other. Double R, double M. I'd be lying if I said I didn't ship them on an interstellar level. But did you know that before double R was even a thing, there were plans for Mirella to have another romantic partner? Well, here comes the shocking revelation that I'm sure you are not ready to hear. Well, here goes. Believe it or not, but before Ryan, there were plans for Mirella to date none other than Luna. Yeah, better change the topic. I don't want to bring up old thoughts. The redhead wouldn't be so happy to hear about that, I'm sure. We all know by now that our fourth green girl's name is Mirella Victoria, which, by the way, is a completely Brazilian name. But did you know that Mirella actually has a middle name? Yes, Mirella's name is Mirella S. Victoria. What's the S, you asked? Well, I'll leave that open for now. Some of you may remember that in the episode Career Chaos, where Shai is trying to find a source of income to buy her a new phone, she receives a call she thought was for her, but apparently it was just someone who dialed the wrong number. But did you notice the name the voice said? Yes, Lindsay. Well, what if I told you that this isn't a random name? Lindsay is actually connected to Mirella in some way. It refers to another version of Mirella, whose last name is Lindsay. Yes, the caller was actually trying to call Mirella's house. I just think they have gotten the wrong Mirella. A not so fun fact about Mirella is that she has bipolar disorder. She constantly finds herself overthinking her problems and future, and regretting things she did or didn't do. Luckily, she has incredibly amazing friends and the best husband in the world by her side to take care of her whenever she needs it. One of Mirella's powers, which isn't often mentioned, is her healing factor. Yes, just like Deadpool, Wolverine, or the Hulk. She's able to regenerate any wound very quickly. However, if it's fatal and instantaneous, she may not be able to do it. There are some things that can slow or disable her healing factor, but only one is known so far: Luna's claws. Yes, if Mirella is cut by these, her healing factor will slow down, giving the lunatic pink girl an advantage. And finally, Mirella has a secret ability in which she can copy an enemy's direct attack, attacking them back with the exact same attack. Of course, this consumes a lot of energy, and it's even risky to break her mask and lose control. The name of the ability is, guess what? Mimic! Yeah, surprising, you know. Mirella's parasite form is relentless. She has almost no control over it, and it can be dangerous to lose control in a rural area. She will only recognize people she truly loves, Ryan being one of them, being one of the few she won't attack. She'll even allow him to pet her and calm her down, transforming her back almost like the Hulk and Black Widow in Avengers Age of Ultron. And once she returns to normal, well, she's lucky her hair is extremely long and can cover her whole body. Well, Mirella is definitely a milestone in my life. Not only that, she represents the transition from one phase to another, and I must thank her for all the good things she brought. I hope you enjoy some of these facts and secrets about our Mimic Midori. I plan to bring you more like this if you like this video. I have many interesting secrets and fun facts about Luna that you never imagined. For example, did you know that she has already gone through more than 5 design iterations? Yeah, it gave me some serious headaches for a while. Thanks for watching, take care, and bye bye. Love ya.